Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, I'm a real person, and today I want to talk to you about Hyrule Warriors Legends for the Nintendo 3DS. How's that? Is that good? There's no good way to display this. There. Did it. Perfect. Good enough. Yep, it's just about this. I have never played the first one. I didn't play the definitive edition. I'm mostly talking about this while I'm aware of those because this is the one I got, played, and did not 100% complete it, but it's huge, and there's so much stuff to do, and I feel like I've seen most there is to see for unique content, so good enough for me. Hopefully it's good enough for you. And there's a written review in the description, and I think that'll do it for introductions. Let's do the thing. So Hyrule Warriors Legends is a spin-off of the Zelda series, essentially, made by, what the hell is their name? It's not, it's covered up on the back. Nope. It's Koei Tecmo, Team Ninja. The people who made Dynasty Warriors worked on this game. Essentially like a crossover. The idea of using the Zelda franchise to make a Dynasty Warriors-esque game for newcomers to Dynasty Warriors. The overall gameplay, as far as most of it is based around these battles where you play as a character. You have moves like light attacks, heavy attacks. You have combos of mixing up light and heavy attacks in there in different orders. They give you a bunch of different moves. Some do more damage, some are more for area of effect. You fight off these enemies. There's usually lots of little grunt enemies. There are some captain enemies that are a little bit beefier. There are enemies that are beefier than that are usually focused on doing things like leading raids or reinforcing areas or just being a general nuisance. Some are like more to really be aggressive towards you or characters. Some are more about getting posts or forts. And on this battlefield you have all of these different forts. Also have usually have a base. There are forts, bases, and outposts. So if your base falls, you lose. If the enemy base falls, they lose. If you have a fort, you can have your character spawn there, and the more forts you have, the more control you have over the battlefield. The more soldiers you'll have out there, the more units you'll have moving around, the more things you can do. And sometimes you need to capture them to open up certain areas or keep the enemies from doing certain things to you if they have those areas. And then there are little outposts that you can capture that just give you some extra buffering time. Just more people out there, and they're kind of holding those positions. And usually if there's anyone moving forward for enemy forces, they'll usually stop to try and take outposts as well. And they're, again, just part of the flow of, like, controlling the battlefield and who has you'll have higher morale if you have more control over the battlefield, which will help you, your soldiers just perform better, give them slight buffs. Other things are, like, there for other enemy types, just character types, because, like, you can have all the same ones, too. You have the grunts, and you have, like, the slightly bigger ones. You have, like, the more elite characters, the more elite units. Some of them are, also there are some character units that are, basically just based on the actual famous characters from the Zelda universe, and they'll fight you as if you can fight them, the same kind of ways you fight, with that style. They had the same moves they would have as if you used them, that kind of thing. And there are also boss characters that are based on famous Zelda bosses. They usually have to be fought in a way where both them and most of the enemies, I guess, will have the bigger enemies will have like a weak point gauge. Every once in a while they'll do something that opens them up, and then you can chip away at their weak point gauge, and then once that goes down, you'll be able to do a little chunk of damage to them. Um, for a lot of them, there's also some little weaknesses, things where you can use certain items. You have things like bombs and arrows and hookshot and whatnot. You get along through as the game progresses, and you can use those to open them up for more damage right away rather than waiting for an opening without those. Um, so a lot of the bosses will have things similar, like King Dodongo or whatever. Like you fight Dodongo, and it's like you throw bombs in its mouth, and then it stuns it, that kind of thing. Um, and so, also, usually, if you or one of the major character allies goes down, that means that you've lost the battle as well. So that's usually a condition. And victory conditions oftentimes will change based on whatever the current mission you're doing is. Sometimes it is just taking out the enemy base, sometimes it's taking out a specific enemy, or just completing some other task. Uh, and generally, I think all battles, I think you have like an hour is usually the baseline or the time limit. If you take more than an hour, you'll lose, but you have an hour. Um, Also, a lot of times treasure chests will show up, and sometimes there's stuff in there for you to get. Like some of it, sometimes it's just rupees, sometimes it's um, new weapons, sometimes it'll be like heart pieces to upgrade your characters. Um, for the main legend mode, which is the main thing, it's where there's a story, um, and it essentially kind of plays out as you sort of figuring out that Link is this hero. Um, this legendary hero. He's kind of figuring that out, and he gets the Master Sword, and he goes forward doing that. You unlock a lot of characters along the way as you find them during that, and you get experience as you're going through the levels, and makes you stronger and gives you more health and whatnot. Um, and the whole thing really just turns into kind of a really crazy mishmash of an original story idea mixed with lots of existing Zelda concepts as far as the story and characters go. Basically, it's like a Zelda fan fiction on crack, is how I would explain that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a lot of it. It's kind of just there to propel you forward, and it gets the job done. And then, like you can pick up materials and stuff from fallen enemies and whatnot, and using those materials, you can craft these little like badges for your characters, which can upgrade their abilities and their skills. Give them more defense against certain types of attacks. You can get them longer attack combos, and give them more of these gauges. Like, okay, so there's also things like when you're fighting, you build up, you can build up this like attack gauge, and then once that's full, you can hit a button to activate that special attack. Also, there's a magic meter. You can turn on a focus spirit, and I don't really remember what the focus really does. I think it's just like you do more damage when you have that. I think you can also do more special moves when you do that. But you can also use the magic meter to use your fairy partners that you have in this game to use their abilities, which usually does an area of effect of a bunch of damage based on the fairy's type, and then some kind of secondary effect based on whatever magic that fairy currently has, which is based on its traits, which you can slightly customize in a menu, and then you also pick up food to feed the fairy to like upgrade those traits, and then after having certain presets of traits and their values filled, you'll unlock more and more skills for the fairies to learn, so you can customize them further as you go. And I mean, most of that stuff in the main story is pretty much doing these battles, fighting off enemies, capturing forts and outposts, and beating up enemies, trying to survive, trying to complete the different objectives as you're going through, and then watching the little story and cutscenes that happen throughout. But from multiple different perspectives, a few different storylines, and I believe this also adds in Wind Waker stuff as another additional bonus chapter thing, which I don't think was in the original game. I don't think. Then there's also adventure mode that unlocks, and here basically there's like a big map. It's like picture the original Legend of Zelda, and every screen is like a tile. So it's the map of that. You beat those. They're all just like basically every one of those tiles is like a mission, and so you have to do something there. It's just like, oh, and usually you'll have to be a certain character. Sometimes you have to use a certain weapon, and maybe be other stipulations. Like it'd be like a trivia one where it's like defeat the enemy that does whatever, and then like they'll put multiple enemies in the room with you, and you have to defeat the correct enemy. Um, or things like just like get more KOs than your opponent, get this many KOs before the opponent. You know, beat this level with these certain constraints of like these are the enemies or this is the character you have to use or whatever. Um, there's ones where like it's every attack is devastating. Get hit once and you lose all but a fourth of a heart, and then you get hit again and you die. But also all enemies die in one hit. So there's a lot of different things there. And you can unlock more characters there and more weapons there for your characters to use, so you can customize their different weapons. Um, and also, I mean, also during battles, usually you can switch between whatever characters you bring with you as well, and slightly command them to do things on the map. So you do have that ability, which again, I think that's new to this one. I don't think that was in the original game, but don't quote me on that. And also, as you beat these levels, you get like ranks based on how much damage you took, how quickly you did the level, and how many KOs you got. A lot of levels, both in the Legend mode and in Adventure mode, have gold skulltulas for you to find. And if you get them, you get little pictures. And as you unlock these little pieces of these pictures, once you complete a whole portrait, you unlock a rewards map as part of the Adventure mode. Plus, you just get to see that artwork. And depending on the ranks you get, you can unlock different areas and get different rewards in the adventure map. Also, you'll get these little item cards that can be used to unlock little secrets. So, like, oh, you know, there's like a bombable wall on this screen of the original Legend of Zelda. Or you have a bomb item card, you can go use it on that little section of the screen there, and then it usually unlocks some other reward. Sometimes it unlocks an extra path somewhere. And there's multiple adventure mode maps. And that's adventure mode, essentially. There's also free play mode where you can replay the main story matches, but levels and stages, but you can play them with any of the characters that you have unlocked. And there's multiple different difficulties, so you can play on a higher difficulty. They'll be tougher, they'll do more damage, but also you'll get higher, you get better rewards, you get better materials for crafting things. And you can also use rupees to do things like you can use those to level up, you can use those to craft, basically mess around with your items and like get better weapons and like change different stats on the different weapons you're collecting, because you just keep getting more and more weapons with slightly different stats and damage and whatnot. Lots of little RPG-ish pieces in there with the leveling up and the loot and customization pieces. And that's pretty much the entirety of the game is those main modes and doing that, and trying to just get all of that done. And I liked a lot of it, actually. It was fun to go around and just hack and slash tons of people. I didn't, I wasn't like too invested in a lot of the story stuff going on, but it was cool to play as all these different characters and be like, oh, I can try out this different stuff, and see what's going on. And then there's like the adventure mode I thought was really good, because while the main game was good for like teaching you how to play, the story, the adventure mode was kind of cool, because then it was like, okay, let's take those ideas and let's turn them on their heads a bit, and like let's have fun with the mechanics that we've already built, so it doesn't feel like every battle is basically doing the same thing for every single battle. But still, a lot of those you could employ the same strategy and do just as well. So it's a little here and there with that. And I did like the adventure mode a lot more. I don't know, like the RPG stuff was kind of neat. I don't know, it was neat. It was a neat game, doing that stuff, and for a while, playing around with different concepts and just having this fun little spin on the Zelda series, I guess, was neat. It was nice, but eventually, it just it wears thin. it's not a Zelda game. So if you're looking for a Zelda game, this is not it. This is not going to scratch that itch for like, well, I'm waiting for another Zelda game or something. I'll get this in the meantime. No, it's not a Zelda game. It's just it's a spin-off. It's a Dynasty Warriors game that's trying to simplify that kind of gameplay. It's fine. I don't know. It's okay for what it is, but that's only if you want what it is. And it gets repetitive, and it's so grindy to keep leveling up and basically doing the same battles over and over and over again to get materials to vaguely slightly change things so you can up your difficulty and do it more. And I mean, after a while, it becomes so much. It actually got to the point where, yeah, I would play like once a day. I turned it into basically a daily game because there's just too much to do. And I was like, let's do a mission a day. And even then, it was too much. It was just like, a lot of times, just like, I don't feel like doing this today. And, you know, it wears out its welcome. It's not the kind of game that you want to complete. It's the kind of game you want to play and have fun with when it's fun, and then put it down. And I think that playing through, you know, basically the story mode is good. Play through the main legend mode, play through adventure mode, and then, you know, after that, the first adventure mode map, and after that, just do whatever, because after you do those, you pretty much know the game, and it becomes a long, repetitive slog, doing the same stuff over and over to unlock the same stuff over and over. And you eventually also pretty much just end up playing as your favorite characters the whole time, and unless it tells you to play as someone else, it, like, locks you out of someone that you want to play. Like, I played as Link the whole time because I got the Master Sword, and then that's super powerful, and then you just use his spin attack that's super easy to do. You just hold one button and then let go, and then you do a spin attack, and it does lots of damage, it clears lots of enemies around you, it's just insanely powerful. There's, like, there's no reason to not use Link, despite that being really boring because I can play as Link in every fucking Zelda game. There's no reason to not use Link, really, for me, unless it's like I can't, or if I was somehow bored of using him, which I still enjoy using him. So it's pretty much if I couldn't use him for what I was trying to do. I guess what I'm getting at here is that Hyrule Warriors Legends is a tough game to recommend. I mean, it's fine. It's fun. It's an interesting spin-off of the Zelda series. It's okay. Um, if you want to play that like a nice hack and slashy thing to just has something to do with Zelda but doesn't play like a Zelda game, here you go. I've heard it's a nice entry level to that style of game. I've not played any other actual Dynasty Warriors games or anything, so I can't really say much about that. But this doesn't really make me all that interested in playing other ones either. I'll admit that, because I'm just not that terribly interested. Um, and as far as getting a version of this game, if you're looking, I think the three versions that are available do offer something a little different, each one. The definitive edition on the Switch is something where it's got all the content in it, and it can be handheld or on the console, but it's also going to be the most expensive of them, likely. Whereas the Wii U one, just Hyrule Warriors, will probably be the cheapest, and will still look pretty good, but it'll be tied to your Wii U, stuck on the console, and will have the least amount of content. Though since there's already so much content, maybe that's not such a bad thing. And this is somewhere in the middle. If you got a 3DS and you don't want to, pay as much for the Switch version, you don't mind to cut in the visuals. It does slow down a little bit on the normal 3DS, and on the new variants of the 3DS, it runs fine, but it still looks pretty much the same. This is okay if this is what you're looking for. Each one has its pros and cons, and I don't know. I guess depending on what system you have, that'll most likely just determine which one you want. But if you've played the other versions, what do you think? How do you think they compare? I'd be interested to see that in the comments, to be like, what do you guys think of the different Hyrule Warriors iterations? And do you think they really needed to do three of the exact same fucking game spanning these three systems? Or would one have sufficed? That's up to you to decide. But it was still pretty interesting to play. I don't regret playing it. I just regret playing as much as I did because it did really wear out its welcome, and I stupidly let it continue to be unwelcome while I was like, I can 100% complete it, right? Which I probably could, but by the time I did that, I would hate it, and then I might be a little too biased towards hating it to sing the praises that it does have for the cool things it has going for it. Also, I'm a little torn because I was gonna do a teaser of like maybe I'll review this next or soon, but then I also wanted to end on the note that Imp Midna is hot, and now I just don't know what I want to do to end it, so that'll do.